Welcome back. In today's video I'm going to share a more unique, non-conventional class build with the Ranger class. I'm going to turn the Ranger into a heavy armor wearing, dual wielding, damage dealing, tanky jumping maniac. I absolutely love this build. It's insanely powerful, and even more importantly, it's extremely fun and engaging. Before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to some recent YouTube channel members, Elias, Nate Wolf, Joseph, and Shy Violet, and also a shout out to some recent channel patrons, Bogdan, Baraz, and Daniel. Thank you guys so much. This video goes out to you guys. Links to my Twitter and my Discord server will be below. Let's get right into it. With this build for the Ranger class, you're going to be on the front lines dishing out insane damage, taking damage like a champ, avoiding damage, and not allowing any enemies to have good positioning. You're going to be wearing heavy armor, dual wielding mighty weapons that most others can't, and healing yourself. For this Ranger build, you will not be accompanied by a beast companion, for we will be choosing the Hunter subclass at level 3, but who needs a beast companion when you're literally the beast yourself? The damage potential is insane with this build. Take a look at my level 4 Hunter Ranger. We have two 1d8 plus 1 weapons in our hands, each of which gets a +3 strength modifier added to the damage roll, allowing us to do up to 24 damage in one turn. But there's more. We get to add in the Hunter's Mark spell and the Colossus Slayer Hunter feature into the equation, now giving us the potential to do 44 total damage on one single target. We also have 40 hit points and an armor class that's supposed to be 17, but there's a bug currently, and that 17 will turn into a 19 when we have our cleric keep Shield of Faith active on us, making this guy pretty tanky as well. Now that you see what this build is capable of, let's get into building this specific type of Ranger, starting in character creation. This build will focus on strength and constitution. It is of course possible and viable to do a dexterity build, but we're going to be wearing heavy armor, using non-light weapons, pushing enemies, and jumping a lot. The Shield Dwarf is an excellent choice, for you get a +2 to strength and constitution. But we're actually going to go with the High Half-Elf for the racial features. As a High Half-Elf, we get to choose a cantrip, and there's a really good tanky cantrip called Blade Ward. Blade Ward gives you resistance, which means you take half the damage to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage for 2 turns. This is really good and will keep you alive in many situations. For our ability improvements, we get a +2 to charisma, which isn't essential to the build, but nice to have in general. And we also get a +1 to 2 other ability scores of our choice, which we will of course go with strength and constitution. This allows us to get both strength and constitution to 16 with a +3 modifier right away in character creation. When distributing your ability points, give Strength 16, Dexterity 10, Constitution 16, Intelligence 8, Wisdom 14, and Charisma will stay at 10. Strength and Constitution are our most important abilities, for Strength is going to add to our attack rolls, damage rolls, and it helps you jump further. Constitution is going to give us more hit points and also help us hold our concentration with a very important Hunter's Mark spell. I brought Dexterity up to a 10 with a 0 modifier to help a little with initiative rolls and Dexterity saving throws, which is helpful for survivability. Intelligence is our dump stat. Wisdom at 14 with a +2 modifier is going to help with some of the Ranger spells and also help with the skills we choose and sometimes saving throws. Wisdom isn't actually as important for this build as it might be for other Ranger builds, for we're not going to be using many Ranger spells that actually use Wisdom, but the one that we do use, it's nice to have the extra boost. I'm not adding any more to Charisma than what our racial boost gave us, which is nice mainly for dialogue situations. What skills you acquire is really up to you. Just remember that intelligence is the dump stat, so you might want to choose skills associated with your higher ability modifiers, such as wisdom. The High Half-Elf feature of Fey Ancestry is a nice plus for this build, for with this, magic cannot put you to sleep, and we don't want our damage tank falling asleep during battle. High Half-Elves also get Dark Vision, which as many of you know makes the overall game much easier. On the class tab, we are choosing the Ranger class. Our favorite enemy choice is going to be Ranger Knight to gain heavy armor proficiency, and then we're going to choose Wasteland Wanderer Fire for our natural explorer choice. Taking only half damage from fire with this build is really good. It helps you not be as afraid to be in someone's face even when the ground is on fire. Your wizard will also love this, for they can continue to light the ground on fire as your enemies burn and you continue to survive. From level 1 to 2 in the game, which will go by fairly fast, all you need to do is get in enemies' faces and swing away. The sooner you can find an offhand weapon to acquaint yourself with the dual wielding mechanics, the better off you will be. Until we reach level 4, we can only use weapons with the light property for dual wielding. When dual wielding, you will notice on the bottom left of the screen that there's a toggle for one-handed and dual wield. If you have the toggle on dual wield, when you attack an enemy, the game will use your action and your bonus action to swing both weapons, each of which has its own attack roll and damage roll. If you're on the one-handed toggle, you will only swing one weapon, and if you notice, your offhand attack has its own icon. So you can swing at two separate enemies if you want, one with your main hand and one with your offhand, or use a spell with your action and attack with your bonus action. There's many possibilities when dual wielding, and it adds a lot of engagement to your encounters. Now is also a good time to familiarize yourself with the Blade Ward cantrip that we got from character creation. If you can cast it before combat, do so, but make sure to enter turn-based mode so the duration of this buff does not run out too fast, for it only lasts for 2 turns. If you have to cast it in combat, or if it runs out and you want to get it back on your ranger, you can cast Blade Ward with your action and then use your bonus action to strike with your offhand attack. When we reach level 2, we get to choose a fighting style, which is called the class passive in the game. We are of course going to go with 2-weapon fighting, which will let us add our ability modifier to the damage of our offhand attack. Before, our strength modifier was only added to our main hand attack and our damage rolls. Now we get that extra +3 added to our offhand attack as well. It's a nice and significant boost to damage. At level 2, we also get to learn 2 ranger spells. You definitely want to pick up Hunter's Mark, which is one of the ranger's best spells. Hunter's Mark marks a creature as your quarry to deal an additional 1d6 piercing damage whenever you hit with a weapon attack. When you cast this on a target, a red evil looking mark appears above their head, and if you land a weapon attack on them, you will get an additional 1 to 6 damage per weapon attack, and we have 2 weapons. This is a really good spell. It's almost like giving yourself 2 extra arms, each holding a weapon. This spell does require concentration though, so if you take any damage, the game will make you do a Constitution saving throw, and if you fail, Hunter's Mark will go away. But we gave ourselves a good Constitution modifier in character creation to help with that. Hunter's Mark does use up a spell slot, but instead of using your action, it uses your bonus action, so you can still do a main hand attack or even possibly use another spell. Another very important thing to note is that if the creature you put Hunter's Mark on dies with it on them, you can then reapply it on another enemy as a bonus action without it costing one of your limited spell slots. Take advantage of this spell and keep it active on your enemies as much as you can for that extra damage. The second spell we're going to choose is Jump, which reads as, touch a creature to triple its jump distance. This spell makes your ranger very scary on the battlefield, for no one is safe from your blades. Mark your enemy with Hunter's Mark, and if you can't reach them with your movement bar, use Jump instead and get right up in their face. Jump lasts for 10 turns, which is a long time, and it does not require concentration. You should cast Jump on yourself before almost every combat encounter, especially the ones that take place on larger battlefields with multiple enemies. If you have it active on you before combat starts, you won't have to waste your action in combat casting it. So your order of operations now will be, if possible, before combat, enter turn-based mode and cast Jump and Blade Ward on yourself, and then enter combat like an absolute maniac. With Jump active, you can likely get to any enemy that you see. If you jump over to the range-based enemies, they will likely attempt to move away from you on their turn, setting off your opportunity attack reaction. And currently in early access, if you do get an opportunity attack, it swings both of your weapons. When possible, try to get behind opponents, which will give you advantage on your attacks with both weapons, making it much more likely that both weapons will land their strikes, which is when you can get into the really insane damage numbers. Before we talk about level 3, let me mention a really powerful combo that you can do with this class. If you have a cleric with you or Shadowheart, have the cleric cast Shield of Faith on your ranger, giving you a +2 to your armor class for as long as your cleric can hold their concentration. This is huge for a character like you that is getting in everyone's faces, and this makes it much harder for many enemies to even land their strikes on you. On top of that, if they do get past your armor class and get a hit, if you have Blade Ward on, they're likely only doing half damage. This is a big reason why this is not just the damage ranger, but also a tank. On to level 3, where we get to choose our ranger's subclass, and this is where it really starts to get crazy. Choose the Hunter subclass and go with Colossus Slayer. Colossus Slayer reads as, once per turn your weapon attack deals an extra 1d8 damage if the target is below its hit point maximum. So any target that doesn't have full HP, you have the potential to deal an extra 1 to 8 damage on your turn. In the present version of Early Access though, Colossus Slayer is applied even to full HP enemies. All you have to do is successfully land just one weapon strike on a full health target, and you get that extra 1 to 8 damage, making this build even more overpowered. This will likely be fixed in future updates. So we currently have 2 weapons each dealing their own damage. Then we have Hunter's Mark, which is dealing an additional 1 to 6 damage per weapon, and then also Colossus Slayer, which is giving us an additional 1 to 8 damage. There's a lot of damage potential, and it's going to get even better when we get to level 4. At level 3, you also get to choose one more spell, and we're going to go with Cure Wounds to once again add to our tanky survivability aspects for this build. So now if we need a heal and no one in our party can help us, we got ourselves covered if we have an available spell slot. When we reach max early access level of 4, instead of taking an ability score improvement, we're going to take a feat. We got both strength and constitution to 16 in character creation, which is a respectable level, so now we get to have some real fun with the dual wielder feat. It reads as, gain a +1 to armor class while wielding a melee weapon in each hand. You can use 2 weapon fighting even if your weapons aren't light. Now the bad news is that the +1 to AC is actually currently bugged. Any boost to armor class is kind of a big deal, so when this starts working as intended, we're going to be rocking a high armor class with heavy armor, the +1 with this feat, and also if possible a cleric Shield of Faith spell giving us another +2. Even with this being bugged, we're still going to take this feat, for we can now use non-light one-handed weapons or versatile weapons for our dual wielding. This is going to increase our damage potential even further. At this point in the game, go ahead and get rid of your light melee weapons and grace yourself with the presence of some larger, more deadly weapons, such as long swords and battle axes. These versatile weapons can be used as two-handed weapons or one-handed. We're obviously going to use them as one-handed and put one in each hand. Our previous weapons were 1d6 damage, and now we have 1d8 weapons, which gives us a chance for dealing an extra 2 damage per weapon. Look for weapons that have enchantments that give you an extra guaranteed +1 with a successful hit, like both of my current weapons do. On the topic of gear, the best heavy armor I could find is inside the Shattered Sanctum Goblin Fortress. If you go inside to the left, there's a halfling merchant named Roa, who sells chainmail armor with 16 AC. You can also buy or steal a very useful helmet which protects against critical hits, and then get yourself some gloves and boots to fill out your set. The gloves give you a +1 to strength saving throws, another tanky aspect, and the boots give you athletics +1. Roa also has some great versatile weapons to wield that will give you 1d8 +1 slashing damage. If you can get the cleave action with your weapons, you now have an attack to add to your arsenal that can hit multiple enemies at once, and Colossus Slayer currently will be applied to both enemies, making this pretty powerful. This Hunter Ranger build is deadly. This is by far the most fun I've had with any class in early access up to this point. Jumping around to any enemy you want and then absolutely destroying them with style is what this build is all about. When the official game launches and we can get to level 5, we'll likely get extra attack, giving us even more damage potential. I can't wait for that day. Let me know what you guys think of this build below in the comments. I highly recommend it, especially if you like this style of play. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. It's a huge help to my channel. I do all sorts of videos on this channel, ranging from live streams to game reviews to game tutorials to lore videos to class guides. I'm going to have many more class guides on the horizon. Looking forward to seeing some of you guys on a future video. Until next time.